Welcome back, Dhamma. So today we are continuing our series on the paramitas and the different realms. And for the animal realm, it's kind of hard to find specific scripture, specific suttas and sutras on where and how one goes about getting reborn in the animal realm and how one avoids that. The only one that we really have, and that really goes into pretty much all of it, comes from the Majjhima Nikaya, a sutta known as the Dog Duty Ascetic Sutta. Right. So before I get into the whole sutta, I'm just going to explain. There are all kinds of different ascetics. People who practiced certain austerities as their spiritual practice during the Buddha's day. There are lots of different kinds of ways of doing this. Buddha explored a whole bunch of them himself before saying those are not 100% useful in and of themselves. Right? So this particular sutta goes into, it's basically a conversation between the Buddha and two ascetics, two lay, well, I guess one of them ended up being a lay person, one of them ended up being a monk. But these two ascetics who were basically trying to explain what they did and ask the Buddha, well, what results can we expect, right? And so this is really the Buddha saying, this is really the Buddha in these two going through everything and saying, this is how you end up in the animal realms, right? These are the causes. This is how you don't get there, right? And this is how once you've begun that practice, you can prevent yourself from going to that realm, right? And he gives a beautiful explanation of the various kinds of karmas that we see. So let's get into it now. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to read the salient parts, the important parts, so you guys can kind of look at these and judge on your own if you have access to the Majjhima Nikaya. So then Puna, son of the Kolyans, we'll start from the top. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living in the Kolyan country, the Kolyas. There's a town of the Kolyans called Halidavasana. I'm not saying that one twice. It's just going to become a city now, or town. Then Puna, a son of the Kolyans and an ox duty ascetic, and also Senia, a naked dog duty ascetic, went to the Blessed One, paid homage to the Blessed One, and sat down to one side. And when the courteous and amiable talk was finished, Senia sat down on one side and curled up like a dog, because that was his practice, right? He was an ascetic who practiced doing things like a dog does, right? Denying himself a little bit of humanity, denying himself a little bit of life, really. When Puna the ox duty ascetic sat down, he asked the Blessed One, Venerable Sir, this naked dog duty ascetic Senia does what is hard to do. He eats his food when it is thrown on the ground. That dog duty has long been taken up and practiced by him. What will be his destination? What will be his future course? And the Buddha, you can imagine him like raising one eyebrow and rolling his eyes and being like, enough, I let that be. Do not ask me that. He's basically saying, you don't want to know. So a second time and a third time, Puna asks that same question, and the Buddha says, well, Puna, since I certainly cannot persuade you when I say, enough, Puna, let that be. Do not ask me that. I'm going to answer you. Here, Puna, someone develops the dog duty fully and unstintingly. He develops the dog habit fully and unstintingly. He develops the dog mind fully and unstintingly. He develops dog behavior fully and unstintingly. Having done that, on the dissolution of the body, after death, he reappears in the company of dogs. But if his view is such as this, by this virtue or duty or asceticism or religious life, I shall become a great god or some lesser god, then that is wrong view in his case. Now there are two destinations for one with wrong view, I say. hell, or the animal womb. So Puna, if his dog duty is perfected, it will lead him to the company of dogs. If not, it will lead him to hell. Those are some. Hey, that's I don't even know what to say to that. You act like a dog, you go to the dogs. You act like a dog and believe that you're better than dogs, you go to hell. Wow! There's the Buddha explaining exactly what he's talking about, right? This is how you get reborn in the animal realm, by doing things like a dog. If your speech, your thoughts, and your deeds are like a dog, you get to be a dog. Imagine that, right? It's kind of a terrible fate, though, really. And so when Senya heard that, he wept and shed tears. And then the Blessed One told Puna, Puna, I could not persuade you when I said, enough, Puna, let that be. Do not ask me that. And Senya says, Venerable Sir, I am not weeping that the Blessed One has spoken thus. Still, this dog duty has long been taken up and practiced by me. Venerable Sir, and then Senya gets his revenge, right? He does that same thing to Puna, right? And so when the Buddha talks about the ox mind, it's the same thing, right? You act like an ox, you think like an ox, your speech is like an ox. You're gonna be an ox, right? This is kind of a very early formulation. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Definitely not something that you want to be, right? In any of those cases. So, when this was said, Puna, son of the Kalyans, and an ox duty ascetic wept and shed tears. Then the Blessed One told Senya, as he had told Puna, the naked dog duty ascetic, Senya, I could not persuade you when I said, enough, Senya, let that be. Do not ask me that. And then Puna says, Venerable Sir, I am not weeping because the Blessed One has spoken thus. Still, this ox duty has long been taken up and practiced by me. Venerable Sir, I have confidence in the Blessed One thus. The Blessed One, the Buddha, is capable of teaching me the Dhamma in such a way that I may abandon this duty, and that this naked dog duty ascetic Senya may abandon that dog duty. And the Buddha kind of says, then Puna, listen and heed well what I say. Puna, there are 4 kinds of karma proclaimed by me after realization myself with direct knowledge. What are the 4? There is dark karma with dark ripening. There is bright karma with bright ripening. There is dark and bright karma with dark and bright ripening. And there is karma that is not dark and not bright, with neither dark nor bright ripening, that conduces to the exhaustion of karma. So we really have 4 types of karma, right? There's bad karma, there's good karma, there's karma that's both good and bad, and then there's karma that's neither. It's neutral. It doesn't produce those results. And that's where we get the exhaustion of karma. That's where you want to be if you're seeking liberation, which as Buddhists we kind of are. That's kind of our deal. So dark karma with dark ripening is produced, as the Buddha says, by here someone produces karmic bodily processes bound up with affliction, that is suffering or causing pain. He produces karmic verbal processes bound up with affliction. He produces karmic mental processes bound up with affliction. And here we're going back to what the Buddha was saying with the, if you think like an ox and you do like an ox and you speak like an ox, you're going to be an ox, right? This is what produces, these are the causes that, that produce these things, right? So your karma comes from your mental, physical, and verbal deeds, right? The things that you do with your mouth, like the things that you say, the things that you do with your body, and the things that you do with your mind. Those all produce results. If they produce affliction, they are dark karma, they are bad karma, right? If they produce suffering, if they produce harm, if they produce pain, they are bad. And bright karma is exactly the opposite, right? Here someone produces a karmic bodily process not bound up with affliction. He produces a karmic verbal process not bound up with affliction. He produces a karmic mental process not bound up with affliction. By doing so, he reappears in a world without affliction, right? This is how you get to heaven. You do all good things, right? All of your things are bright. All of your karma is bright because it's not causing any suffering. It's not causing any pain, right? That's how you go to the heavenly realms. That's how you end up there, right? Could you do that? Sure, you totally could. Then you wouldn't be able to practice like we talked about several weeks ago, right? And the next one is dark and bright karma with dark and bright ripening. And this one is basically, it's going to have, if it's dark and bright, it's going to have dark and bright consequences, right? Actions produce results. Volitional actions produce results. And you are the owner of those results because you have done that, right? So what is neither dark nor bright karma with neither dark nor bright ripening that leads to the exhaustion of karma, aka liberation? As to these three kinds of karma, any volition in abandoning the kind of karma that is dark with dark ripening, any volition in abandoning the kind of karma that is bright with bright ripening, and any volition in abandoning the kind of karma that is dark and bright with dark and bright ripening. This is called neither dark nor bright karma with neither dark nor bright ripening. And that right there, abandoning all three of those, that's how you exhaust your karma, and that's how you reach liberation. So, when this was said, and back to what we were talking about, back to our story. When this was said, Puna said to the Blessed One, Magnificent Master Gotama, the Dhamma has been made clear in many ways by Master Gotama as though he were turning upright what had been overthrown, revealing the hidden, showing the way to one who is lost, holding up a lamp in the darkness for those without eyesight to see forms. I go to Master Gotama for refuge, and to the Dhamma, and to the Sangha of bhikkhus. From today, let Master Gotama remember me as a lay follower who has gone to him for refuge for life. Right? So after the Buddha explained why you go certain places, why he was destined to be reborn in the company of oxen, right? And why, what he had to do to not do that, Buddha gets it. He's like, all right, cool. But he doesn't get all of it, right? He's like, okay, I'm not going to go the full distance, but I am for sure going to start practicing this, right? And then Senia says, Senia, the naked dog duty ascetic, said, Magnificent Master Gotama, the Dhamma has been made clear for the, and he goes through that whole thing. I go to Master Gotama for refuge, and to the Dhamma, and to the Sangha of bhikkhus. I would receive the going forth under Master Gotama with the full admission. He's about to try and become a monk. And the Buddha says, Senia, one who belonged formerly to another sect and wants the going forth and the full admission in this Dhamma and discipline, lives on probation for 4 months, right? This is the novice, the novice stage where you would go through, learn how everything is done in the temple, and then if you're a good fit and it's a good fit for you, then you get accepted into the order, you become a monk, boom, done. Right? At the end of the 4 months, bhikkhus who are satisfied in their minds give him the going forth into homelessness, and also the full admission to the bhikkhu's state. A difference in persons has become known to me in this probation period, right? That's what is said of somebody who comes into the order. The Buddha can see that change in you, that you have really, really transformed yourself, right? So Senia says in reply, Venerable Sir, if those who belong formerly to another sect and want the going forth and the full admission in this Dhamma and discipline live on probation for 4 months, and at the end of the 4 months, bhikkhus who are satisfied in their minds give them the going forth and full admission to the bhikkhu state, I will live on probation for 4 years, and at the end of the 4 years, let bhikkhus who are satisfied in their minds give me the going forth and full admission to the Bhikkhu state. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going above and beyond, right? And that's exactly what Sennia is doing. And what resulted? So Sennia, the naked dog duty ascetic, received the going forth under the Blessed One, and he received the full admission. And not long after his full admission, dwelling alone, withdrawn, diligent, ardent, and self-controlled, the Venerable Sennia, by realization himself with direct knowledge here and now, entered into the abiding in that supreme goal of the holy life, for the sake of which people go forth from the home life into homelessness. He had direct knowledge thus: birth is exhausted, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done, there is no more of this to come. And with that, Venerable Sennia became one of the Arhats. He gained his liberation, full and complete, right? So here we have, and I'm not going to labor on this too long because I've already gone on way longer than I probably should. We have, I'm going to stick with Sennia because Puna, yeah, he went and became, a lay follower. Cool, great, that's awesome. That's totally awesome. But with Sennia, we have the story of somebody who is practicing a certain set of tenets, a certain set of practices that make him act like a dog, right? To kind of humble him, show that, give him that kind of humility, or in his case, probably humiliation as well. He sees what the Buddha is teaching. He listens to what the Buddha is teaching, and he says, "I'm gonna do that." And he becomes a monk. Right? He completely transforms himself. So he's not doing stuff like a dog anymore. He's following the Dharma. He's living this wise, calm, withdrawn, ardent, diligent life. And that is how he gets his liberation. Right? So he could have been born into the animal realm if he had wanted to, if he had kept going with what he was doing. But he didn't. He saw the wisdom in following the Buddha's path. He took that wisdom and went with it himself and reached the goal. He became liberated. He became an Arhat, right? So here we see not only how one can go to the animal realms, and what if you wanted to, you totally could act like said animals. And a lot of us, it's not hard to do in our society where we tend to act like animals, right? Usually angry animals. One might even say that we are, especially in our cultural understandings of things and how our culture operates, we act a lot like animals, right? You see sex and violence all over, and this is us with our minds acting like animals. We are acting like dogs. We are acting, like dogs and cats, right? That's a saying for a reason, because you're fighting like dogs and cats. You are doing exactly what the Buddha said to go to that realm, to where you are dogs and cats, right? You don't have to be there, though. You don't have to do that, right? You can develop, you can see that wisdom, and you can take that light that the Buddha is shining on that path and say, okay, I'm going down the path. I'm going to make it. You don't have to be stuck in animal land. You don't have to be stuck in the realm of being reborn from one animal womb to the next. You can transcend that. And it's actually not that much of a challenge. What you do is you take your bodily, mental, and verbal acts and you put them in accordance with the teaching, right? This is, as we were talking about the cycle and how one is reborn into the realm of the animals by means of ignorance, right? That is what categorizes the animal realms, is ignorance, which we saw here. If you're acting like an animal, you are ignorant of what you really are. You can expect to be ignorant a whole lot more of them, right? Ignorance is countered by wisdom. And you have the capacity, just by learning what the Buddha is teaching, just by living what the Buddha said we should practice, just by doing the right thing, just by really expressing and really embodying that wisdom, you have the capacity to go beyond that. And not just to go beyond the animal realm. You have the capacity as a human being to totally transcend and go all the way to liberation. You have that possibility. Make use of it. And I'm going to end there. One more quick thing, Dhamma Boots. I totally forgot about this, and that's on me. So a lot of times we will see in our units, or in the military culture in general, things like beast mode. What do you think about that? Is that or is that not acting like animals? What then do we do about it? All right? Because we see this from leaders, we see this from NCOs, we see this from really all sides, where we have people acting like animals. What do we do about that? Well, obviously we don't do that ourselves, right? You don't act like an animal just because your leadership does, right? What you do instead is you show them with wisdom. You show them, you take that and you say, I can see by means of compassion the ignorance that underlies that. I'm not going to be bound by that ignorance. I'm going to do something better. I'm going to show them this wisdom, right? Because the choice is really up to you. It's not up to them. They don't understand unless you give them the wisdom to do so. They won't know. They will continue to be ignorant unless you point it out, unless you show them that there's a better way to be. And that's on you, Dhamma Boots. You have your homework.